Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. Welcome to Featured Artist Live, episode number 10 we're on already. Can you believe it's been 10 weeks of listening to your music, people from the community listening to their music. So I'm just make sure I can switch my speakers off, I always forget. And having myself and my guests sort of critique it in a way. I mean, you know, as much as we can. Some of it's just great and doesn't need much critiquing. Some of you are starting out, just, you know, want some feedback on what you're producing. And it's fun just to have a listen to that. And we can all learn from what we can hear in other people's music and that kind of thing. So very happy to be here and to do this. It's a lot of fun. And it's always fun to have my guests here as well. And it's especially fun to have the people, the good people, who are already here in the chat. If you are in the chat, make sure you say hi. I'll say hi to you later if I haven't done already. And do make sure you hit the like button right away. Do that for me because apparently algorithms, blah, 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 and all that. It's going to tell more people about the stream and more people are going to come in. Anyway, so apparently that's true. Let's try that out. If you're watching on the replay, do make sure you leave some comments about the music you're going to hear. It's always good to hear your feedback. And if you're in the live chat here today, this is an audience participation show. We want to hear your comments about the music as we're playing it as well. Some of you in the chat have some really great insights that myself and my guests don't always pick up on. So that's really great. Now, I say guests because it is plural. We're supposed to have on here Pete Johns from Studio Live today and also Dan from Lonely Rocker. But I think Dan may have slept in. We're all in very, very different time zones, especially Pete Johns because he's in one of those peculiar half-an-hour time zones. You know, he's in an odd place, Adelaide. No one cares about it, so they just went, just give him another half an hour. But anyway, so yeah, I can see him here. He's in the little thumbnail on my screen. You can't see him, but yeah, he's reacting. Yeah, he's there's fingers involved. Anyway, now I just should mention quickly, just up here is the sponsor of this show, Distrokid. That's where I release all of my music, which goes out onto Spotify, iTunes, all those kinds of places, as does Pete Johns. And talking about Pete Johns, let's just bring him up. Let's not hold back anymore. He's a legend, an absolute legend. There he is. Pete.
This is all the fingers I was doing. Like there was no other fingers involved, Mike. How are you, mate? What's going on?
I'm tired. I'm an old man. Do you know why? I was just watching your great live show. By the way, if you've just come over here to watch this live show, and this is a good time for you to normally be watching live shows, check out Pete's channel as well, because he does a really good one, a town hall one, just before this one, in fact. And a great community over there as well. So, yeah, sort of put a note in your diary to check up on both our shows around about this time every Thursday. Pete, you asked me how I am. Last Thursday, after we finished the live show, I just packed up my studio and completely rebuilt my PC.
Yes.
Can I give you a quick preview? It's not so different to my old PC.
So RGBs,
Look at the cooler. Look at the cooler.
Like, sorry, tickle in my throat. Yeah, no, that's great, Mike. I love all the colours and
look, that not only has that's got a JPEG on there at the moment, but it can actually. I did have it working yesterday, but it's broken because I'm still trying to figure it out. It's actually a video that I'm playing on that little circular screen on the cooler. Just wanted to tell you about that because I know that's what gets you going. I was just. So anyway, I completely destroyed my PC so I could build a new one.
Nice.
Which is a hard job in a studio when you've got a gazillion plugins and things going on. And so I broke that down. I helped my son, JC, who's 14 years old, build his own computer from scratch from two other computers, my old computer and another one that was lying around. So he'd never built a computer before. I said, I'll give you my old computer, but the catch is you've got to build it. I'm not going to touch it. You've got to do it, which he did very, very well. And then we built another computer out of the bits and pieces that were left. 3 computers in 2 days, and I filmed it for a video as well. And I'm sort of recovering from that. Anyway, that was what that's why I'm tired, because there was 2 or 3 nights in a row and I got 3 hours sleep to get all of that done. Yeah.
Well, I did see that. I saw some of the pictures as it was coming together, and I resisted the urge to put a lot of middle finger emojis and things on there. But no, you know what, like, you do you and like what you like. But and I used to be that way, but I can't even anymore. Since I've joined the dark side, now that I'm an Apple fanboy and a Mac user apparently after 28 years of PC use, I couldn't think of anything worse than trying to work out which chip goes with which processor, which motherboard, which goes with which RAM stick, and
it's like Lego for me. It's just Lego. it's great fun until it goes wrong, of course, until it doesn't work. The first time I switched it on, having spent several $1,000s on parts, I got the blue screen of death within about 5 minutes, and I was like, oh God. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, do I try and fix this now? So it can be tough, but I got it resolved.
Can I ask you one question? Because I haven't built a PC in 10 years. Have they improved the little tiny pins that you have to put in for all of the power and the hard drive lights and all the things?
No,
is that still the worst experience in the world ever?
It's the worst thing. And since I started doing that many years ago, my eyesight has got much worse. You know, it's really, some manufacturers have a thing that you sort of plug everything into beforehand outside of the case, and then you can just plug that in. But in this case, it didn't. So no, I did have to. Anyway,
that's always fun. Someone's mentioned the volume of the stream's a bit low. Is that? Can you let us know if it's that Mike and I aren't balanced, because one of us can come up or go down.
Absolutely,
whichever way you need.
If it's a bit quiet, we can adjust that.
We can boost it. We can. We're audio professionals.
If I just remember, where's my mixer? Let's go. I'm going to go. Here we go. Ooh. Oh no, I can't. I've got to bring up that mixer. Oh my God.
Well, it's fine. But yeah.
This was House Merlot. You know not what you ask here. From us audio professionals.
Oh, yes.
Turning things up. That's a bit complex. I'll tell you what, Pete, for you, is this getting louder now? Am I getting louder?
Yes, you're coming up. Yes, you're coming up. There you go.
That should be a little bit better now, I'm guessing.
Sounding good for me. Folks can let us know. Because they were saying you're a little bit low.
Okay, that's cool. That's unusual.
Nice. See, this is why it's interactive. This is why we have all these awesome professionals here. They're going to help us out.
I know. I am a bit low, as Sausage says, but normally when people say that, when they say, well, Mike goes a bit low, they're not talking about my audio volume. Pete, you want
some music?
Look, while we're having a chat, before we do play some music, which I promise, folks, we will do in a minute.
Yes.
I just want to mention something to you, because people may benefit from this. You were saying you want a new mic arm. You were just talking about this in your stream, because the one I recommended to you broke.
Well, to be honest, you recommended it to me and then said, it's working for me for now. And then you replaced yours, and I saw you replace yours, and I'd already replaced mine with the same one, the $20 eBay job. So yeah, I am looking for a new boom arm. So I'm all ears on boom advice.
Well, this one I told you earlier on when we were chatting today is a sort of it's a non-branded. Well, there's probably a brand on it. Let me have a look. Hang on. It says Alctron. Alctron is what it says on it, which I've only ever found on one website, which is in a place in Australia, Swamp Industries, and I've never found it anywhere else. There's no point in recommending it. I can't put an Amazon link or anything like that. But it looks incredibly exactly the same as some other brands I see, these sort of very heavy-duty ones. It's good. But that's not my main point. The point is, and this is a little tip, I think, for audio production, which Pete touched on in his stream. It's very, very useful to have a boom arm in your studio if you're a solo producer. I often now do not get microphone stands out and set them up and all that, because normally, so I'm moving in and out from the microphones, normally I am playing my guitar right here where you see me here, singing right here where you see me here. It's very, very convenient. I just have to take that microphone and do it like that. Now, you can't hear me now, but if I had a guitar down there...
Mike's a bit low.
If I had a guitar down there, you'd be able to hear the guitar very clearly. I don't have a guitar down there, and the thing that is down there, you don't want to hear that.
Really worried about what we may hear down there. What did I tell you? I knew we'd go off the track. Where's Dad again? I knew we would go way off track with just you and me.
We need Dad. So anyway, I can definitely recommend.
Nice. Well,
to
I'm on
folks
Swamp
in the
right
stream.
now. I'm not paying attention to a word you're saying. So I'm over at Swamp Industries trying to find this this boom arm. So I'll be back with you in a while.
It is about $120. Now, you can listen to some music while you're perusing.
I found it.
Swamp
140.
Industries.
Okay, got it.
So you found it. If 140, I can tell you it's very solid and worth it.
Oh, it's out of
built
stock. Got a
like-
pre-order, ready to ship 11th October. Okay,
Okay.
I'll keep looking.
If it's got to go through Melbourne at all, add 5 weeks to any estimated delivery time.
Mate,
Anyway,
I'm waiting on a birthday present. I'm buying my kids a VR headset because we're getting way off track. And Amazon said, "Oh, I'll be with you yesterday," and now they're like, "Maybe today," and then they're like, "Don't hold your breath." So yeah, things are a bit rough at the moment.
they are rough. So moving on to our first artist, this is a gentleman called Mark Farmer. He has a piece of music called Slow Walk. The information I have on it, which is not a great deal of information, but it was inspired by a TV show he was watching. Now, I think when he says inspired, he was inspired by the music, and he sort of adapted that music. Okay, so he's not copied it. He's adapted. I've had that happen with songs before. I thought, I like that chord progression. I'll chuck that in a song somewhere.
Sure.
And do it a bit of an adaptation, so that's okay. He was saying that the hardest, because I always ask people what difficulties they had, he said the hardest part was the transitions between sections, so we'll listen out for that. He uses Studio One. He uses a very simple interface, the Presonus Audio Box i2. He uses XLR Audio Addictive Keys. That's a plug-in, Pete, in case you don't know. I don't know if I have that on iOS.
I actually used addictive keys and addictive drums back in the day, but anyway.
Yep. Yes, you're a very you're a My Tai Chill Wave as a pad, percussion. He uses some audio loops, which he added some synth-produced percussion to that. So he's taken some loops, but he's added something to it. And he's used Presonus Presence XT strings, which I've also used myself. Quite good. It's a short little piece, and we're going to pull it up now. So this, as I say, is by Mike Farmer, Slow Walk. Well, I like that little ending there, by the way. But enough of what I think. How did you enjoy that, Pete?
I enjoyed that because little known fact is that I was heavily into what we call mod music. So using trackers back in the day. I don't know, you're old enough to remember trackers back in the day, the old
trackers.
Amigas and the Atari STs and the
Yes,
PCs and things.
loved that.
So this reminded me a lot of that because the beauty of a tracker, or the what limitations of a tracker, is that you had to use samples and you had to really manipulate them in interesting ways and use a lot of volume and a lot of filtering and a lot of changes to make things sound cool. Now the beauty is these days we don't have those limitations. You can use fully fledged instruments like this, but for someone like me, the nostalgia and the retro aspect of that really spoke to me. So I wanted to say that up front. And yeah, shout out anyone that ever used a tracker, Scream Tracker, Fast Tracker. Let us know in the comments or the chat, because I know there's people out there just going, yes, I love tracking. But I was trying to find. I listened to the first sort of 75% of that, and then I'm like, Mike's going to ask me what I think they could do better, and I was too taken. I was too taken on the journey with the song. So, and it is hard here over the YouTube compression to work out, the fidelity, and is there, do they need to EQ that bass an extra like 20? None of that sort of stuff is really that easy. So, in terms of what I listened to there, what I loved was the layers that we had in there and the arpeggios in the background. They were just subtle, but that's that really well. The synth sounds had texture. So there was something being done there that was changing the volume, whether they were using filtering or whether they were using volume automation or something. But if you listen really carefully, you'll hear that there's the main instruments, there's the keys and the strings, and then there's a synth that sort of comes up and then it just fades away, and then it comes up and it fades away. And I think that's something that's missing. A lot of music that people create these days in the days of copy and paste is like, oh, you grab that bit and you copy and you paste it, and then here's my first verse, here's my second verse. You don't get that variety, and you don't get the ability to sort of listen to that and have all the different frequencies and the different balances going through. So I really like that. The percussion in there was subtle and not always there, which I like. I think you could have easily just put like like some sort of drum beat behind it or some sort of percussion all the way through, but it stopped in the middle section and then it came back, and I thought that was really good. And overall, it took me on a nice journey because it played on the same themes, so it wasn't going all over the place that was distracting, but it had enough variety in terms of the chord changes and the progression to keep interest throughout the whole piece. So I'm a fan. I was impressed by that. What about you, Mike? What say you?
I just sort of, in a very simple way, I just enjoyed it, and I kind of don't know why, because there's an argument to say, well, in some ways there wasn't much going on there, but there's sometimes less is more, to use a cliche. It just did flow very nicely for me. I think the first time I heard it, I thought, oh yeah, I think I'll put this on the show, because there's just something about it. The person who's doing it understands composition, which I'm just really, really big on. I think it's interesting you mentioned trackers in the context of this, because I'd sort of forgotten about trackers, and then it's like very cool. Interesting. I think the great thing about trackers was their limitation, as you alluded to. Yeah. But you sort of, because I remember them, about creating patterns and setting up those patterns, of course, in different, and then you could sort of. You didn't always have to be in the same place, so you'd get this sort of crossover of patterns, and you get natural variety in that way. Yeah, really cool. If you ever use Fruity Loops, I always think, Fruity Loops was surely inspired by trackers, and it's one of the reasons I love Fruity Loops whenever I try it out, because it just feels like a really fun piece of software for creating that type of music, especially. So.
Just don't tell the 18-year-old beat producers that FL Studio is actually Fruity Loops. Otherwise, they'll not be impressed, because they don't want to know that it came from something called Fruity Loops. It's like, I create my fire beats in FL Studio, and I'm like, you mean you use Fruity Loops? Oh, that's delightful. I love Fruity Loops. Like, what you talking about?
So, but what I'm really interested to know right at this moment is, what did Dan the Lonely Rocker think?
Hey!
Oh, gentlemen, live television.
Let's just lap this up, Pete. We were on time, weren't we, Pete? We knew what time the show started.
I apologize profusely to the sweetest man on YouTube.
Can you say that again? Because I knew you were going to apologise profusely, but I just want to hear it one more time.
I deserve the walk of shame. I deserve the walk of shame. I am so sorry. I will not offer any excuses to your lovely audience. Mike doesn't deserve that. Pete maybe a little bit, but I don't know.
Dan, you just missed out on a really nice piece of electronic music. Not the sort of electronic music you might be thinking of, but it's just someone mentioned in the chat there that it could be for a TV theme or something along those lines. And I think even the person, Mark, who sent that music over, said that his friends often say this about this piece of music. But I know we've discussed this at length on the show when Dan's been on here. That Dan, and I get it. He's a fan of real instruments and things like that. Now, I don't want to paint him as a narrow-minded person. He definitely is not when it comes to music. I know that, and as he often says. So, Dan, I just want to let you know that we do have some more electronic music coming up for you with no real instruments at all, just so you can get your old man grumpy off. But,
as if I didn't start the day bad already. All right.
But we do have a piece of music which has, I think, no virtual instruments in it as well to pacify you at the end of the show. So you're still here in good time to have some great input. I would ask you how your week's been and all that sort of thing, but frankly, you don't deserve such.
Can I offer as an apology to the previous artist to please send me the first track after the show? I will listen to it through.
I'm glad you said that. Links are in the description already for that. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
I will send my commentary through a community post, an apology to that artist.
No worries. It's good to have you here, Dan. For those of you in the live chat and in the replay, Dan is the self-proclaimed, as he often says, lonely rocker. You don't need to have a band to... I've forgotten it. Oh, God.
You don't need a band to rock and roll.
That's it. That's the one, yeah. There's a lot of things you don't need a band for, actually. Bands are highly overrated, as Dan is acknowledged.
Apparently you need a band to wake you up on time, but other than that, it's fine.
You probably couldn't rely upon them for that either. So, a fantastic channel over there. Do follow the link in the description for both Pete and Dan's channels, please. Now, the song that we did listen to, Dan, just a moment ago by Mark was called Slow Walk. And something, as gentlemen of our ages, we understand a slow walk, but something that people shouldn't do slowly or spend too much time thinking about is heading over to Distrokid to get a great deal. Is heading over there because if they did follow the link in the description, they'd see a big yellow banner at the top of the page, which would be indicating that they're going to get 7% off the already fantastic price of $19.99 per year for an unlimited number of songs, releasing that via Distrokid to all of the places you want to release things to, of course, like Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music. Name some more for me, guys.
Deezer, Tidal, YouTube
TikTok.
Music.
Yeah, Google
Instagram.
Play, all of the places, as Pete Johns often says. You can head over there and get 7% off, and that means that I do get a little benefit from that. However, it costs you no extra, of course. So there you go.
You know what else you shouldn't slow walk to?
What?
Your live stream.
Indeed. Just want to say a quick hi to, a quick hi to a few people that I didn't say hello to earlier. We do, of course, have Mimo Japan in there. I just want to thank him. I don't want to forget this because he does a great job of moderating every single week, and also does a great job in moderating on my new Cakewalk Facebook page, which I haven't put a link for in the description. I should have remembered to do that, but you can find it. It's somewhere on Facebook. So yeah, thanks for being here again, as per usual, Mimo, and he's over in Japan, naturally, as you may guess. And he stays up pretty late sometimes, especially when normally I make the shows when Dan's on a bit later, you see. And and Dan has to join like probably a couple of hours later than this. We accommodate him in Canada because they're in a weird time zone. So people like Mimo Japan stay up very late for people like Dan, and just take care. Am I laying on thick enough for you?
I deserve everything I'm going to get today.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next song. We do have a song by a very fresh producer. I think he's only produced a couple of songs. He's admittedly nervous about releasing his music. Dan, I'm going to tell you up front, and Pete, that he uses samples. He kind of puts them together. He adapts them, all that kind of stuff. He uses, I've got to find them here, samples from a place called Sematics, which I'm not familiar with. Don't know if Pete and Dan are. And also gets some vocal samples from Slate Digital. Interestingly, Dan was mentioning this last night, that last week, that it is a little irritating. I'm not going to say Dan said this because I agree with him, that it is a little irritating when people describe themselves as musicians and then use all samples and things and what have you. But I think let's look at this as a producer's piece of work. It's still creative work, and I don't think he's describing himself as a musician. This is a producer we're listening to, so we should be listening to the composition, the mix and everything. Anyway, the piece is called All We Know, and because Dan has just arrived, I'm going to let him pronounce the surname of the artist.
Oh, is that a one or an I? J1 Shu you. J1 Shu, Jishu. It could be something like that.
I did that on purpose. I'm going to punish you throughout this whole stream. Don't worry. So anyway, I just want to apologise in advance to the artists. Not all of us here are in our 50s, but I think a couple of us are. We have no right to be listening to this style of music and critique it at all. Let's go.
All we know is falling down. We don't know where we're going now. No, all we know is falling down, down, down. All we know is falling down. We don't know where we're going now. No, all we know is falling down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Da, 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 da. All we know is falling down. We don't know where we're going now. No, all we know is falling down, down, down. All we know is falling down. We don't know where we're going now. No, all we know is falling down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da,
So can I say up front, just before I allow Dan to speak, I would never listen to this kind of music like ever in my everyday life. I do hear it a lot, though. So we'll get on to that later. But Dan, I know. Look, I'm not trying to pick on you here or anything like that, because I think it's, first of all, isn't it interesting to be forced to listen to music that we don't normally listen to? Do you think that's good for us?
I do to my kids all the time. I tell them, don't listen to this kind of music. Listen to Daddy's music. It's true. Look, I think about things like that a lot, and especially when you cross a certain vintage, you start to wonder if you belong in this world, right? You don't understand. So I do, as much as we joke about my rigidity in my like of styles of music, I do try to keep an open mind. I do recognize the reasons why certain genres exist. Actually would be a good topic for another video, is about the state of rock music, because good rock music today just seems like a derivative of things in the past. So different genres have sprung up because musicians, some of them wanted to do something different instead of what was done before. And then unfortunately in this particular genre, it's too easy to do for too many people, because there's a lot of tools that help you along, so it's hard to discern one from the other, because they all start to sound the same. And that's, to answer your question, it's low-hanging fruit. It's so accessible, and anyone who needs a piece of music like this can find it free, pretty much. Right? And that's why, now, not to sound like I'm bashing this particular track, I mean, it has its place because people enjoy this kind of music. I mean, someone said in the comments I saw, was the first thing I was thinking, this would play in a club. It has that big backbeat, big, bottom end, as much as I can hear in this mono signal. One thing I will give it, that, I mean, I don't know if this will be fair, because I don't listen to this genre a lot, is there were some dynamics to the track. Because the one thing about this music is I find it very repetitive. And from a vocal perspective, you can definitely say that about this one. It was repetitive, but there were some dynamics where, it brought you up and then it threw you down and kept you down there a little bit, then brought you back up again. And I know those are things that will go over well in a club setting, right? Just to keep people on their toes, moving and stuff. So on that regard, I'm not the authority on this kind of music, but I did feel that in this track that there was some good dynamics there and stuff. So beyond that, cool. It is hard for me to relate to it for reasons I mentioned.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Hey, Johns, you've been sitting there. There's been the odd nod. There's been the odd shake of the head. You've picked your nose for a while. I don't know why on air, But yeah. So what was your thoughts?
Yeah. So I mean, I listen to more diverse music now than I ever have. I grew up in the 90s where if it didn't have a guitar in it, you didn't listen to it, because you were either a hip hop / dance, what we used to call techno back in the day, or you were into real music, as we called it, which had to have guitar, bass, drums, yelling, and that's about it. So I was very narrow, and then I've expanded as I've continued. And that's not to make myself sound like a wanker. It's like, oh, I'm such an aficionado of all the music. No, it's just that having children, as Dan alluded to, makes you exposed to a lot more different music. And doing what I've done for the last 6 years on this channel has exposed me to a lot of different music. Plus, I actually have a real soft spot for this kind of music. I love a band, a group called Basement Jaxx, and this reminded me of some old school Basement Jaxx, because they had some bangers that were great back in the day, and it reminded me of that 90s dance style, which kind of had a lot of the. It wasn't what we had today, which is all auto-tune and all just the same thing. And as Dan said, I like this because it had some variety and it did have some dynamics, and it wasn't just like I'm picturing that sound, and you go to SoundCloud these days and you just see these sausage waveforms, because you know that 808 is going to kick in on the first beat and the 808 is going to kick in on the last beat, and everything in between is just going to be at the same volume, and it's going to be boring as balls. Whereas this thing actually had a lot going for it. What I liked was that the pause before the drop. So the traditional drop is do 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 do. It gave you a bar,
longer, wasn't it? Yeah,
that extra bar actually was really interesting, because it just added a little bit more tension. And then into the quiet part, there was just like a really nice riser that actually brought it up there from the... And then you expected a sec. And then the second drop did the same sort of thing. But I still wasn't expecting it. I was still waiting for it to just drop again. and it did the same thing. So in terms of being able to take something and do it unique way, I think this was pretty good. What would I do differently? Like the da 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 da. I got a little bit over everything being on the kick. Like it's cool to just have the 1 and the 3, but every lyric was on the 1 and the 3, and that got a little bit tedious. So I would have loved to hear some change up, whether it's a rap verse in the middle or just something that was a little bit syncopated in the middle there, just to change it up, just to take it away from that. And they had the opportunity in that quiet part through the middle to just do something that was going to be a little bit off the beat. Whereas, but again, because I'm old, because I don't go to the club, maybe that would just ruin it in the club, because in the club, you just have to keep dancing like that on the beat. And if you go off the beat, then it's not going to be cool. So, yeah, I think that was what I noticed and what I would change. Or if someone said, hey, I produced this beat, what do you think of it? That's what I'd say to them. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And not my genre, but it seems like a good representation of something, and you could dance to it for sure.
Yeah, and as well as dancing to it, you could sort of... I'll tell you what my experience of this kind of music is. Probably about 3 evenings per week, Susie works out in the bedroom. And I can tell you what she's not working out to. She's not working out to Ben Lee, and she's not working out to Rush. And if she did, somebody would have added one of these beats to that piece of music. I heard Buddy Holly's "That'll Be the Day" the other day, which is actually a swing beat put to one of these beats. It didn't quite fit, but they did it anyway, right? They just sort of wedged it.
Yeah.
But if she worked out to Rush, she would be disproportionately ripped.
So true. Yeah, and if she worked out to Ben Lee, she'd be thoughtfully ripped.
I worked out to Tool once, and I tore both hamstrings because I couldn't work out the time signature.
That's
So you know, everything has a purpose. You know, there's that. I think, you know, it's important to understand that whether it's, you know, for example, I don't know, other genres of music that people sometimes hate, like comedy music. Its purpose is to make you laugh. It's not some, you know, so whatever. People think it's cheap, but if it does the job, someone said in the comments, if it makes you tap your feet and swing your hips, then we'll call it music. I think it was something like that. But anyway, I wanted to send a little sort of message of my opinion to the producer there. His name is, I guess it's pronounced Jishu. From what I gathered in our email exchange, you're just starting out. He said, he's a quote from him, "In a nutshell, I'm not good at mixing and mastering, but this is how it sounds when I do." Well, I don't agree with you. I think the mixing and mastering in that was fine for that genre of music. It was very over compressed in places, on the kick especially. You got that pumping feeling, and that's what they call for in that genre of music. So if this is your starting point, I think you can do much better. So if you're not a singer or a musician, what I would encourage you to do from now on is move away from those off-the-shelf samples that you're getting from websites. Have a go at creating some of your own samples. Get to know a local vocalist or two who can come in, because, you know, obviously for me, and I know lyrics are not very important in this sort of music, but at some point you're going to want to produce a piece of music which has a specific lyric, and you're not going to be able to buy that off the shelf. So get to know a local vocalist or two, one female, one male. They'll be probably most happy to do it for you in a lot of circumstances, and make some of your own samples. Even if you're taking an existing virtual instrument, say a kick drum from a virtual instrument, and mashing it up in so many different ways that you make it your own, that's a so I think you'll get much more fulfillment, I would say, in the long term if you get really creative, because what you did there, what Pete Johns mentioned with the extended drop, showed that, yeah, you want to do something different. I say go out there and do something really different. Really surprise us with your next track. If you do that, then I'll put it on the show and you can have a play again. I want to hear something that go, oh, I just didn't expect that. And I think people are hungry for that. Even though they like this kind of music and there's a formula to it, I still know that, you know, with my kids and other people around the house, if there's occasionally people just do something very unexpected in this kind of music. There's still room for that creativity. Do it. That's my sermon over.
I like it. And you mentioned before Dan showed up late, we're talking about FL Studio and Fruity Loops, and the fact that like a lot of people produce in FL Studio or Fruity Loops, which the kids don't like you calling it because it sounds old school. But when people use the default sounds, and it's the same with GarageBand. I'm big into GarageBand, but what I say to people that are using GarageBand is, if you just use the default beats and loops and synths and patches that everyone else is using, guess what? You're going to sound like everyone else. The beauty is that you can find sounds everywhere. And what do we all have sitting in our pockets all the time? A recorder. Like, you can record in a sound with this. You can sample anything, anywhere, anytime. So if you hear a cool sound, we mentioned this, I think, last time I was on here because it's my favourite story, but when Billie Eilish was in Australia, she sampled one of our streets, like our walking crossing things that goes beep, 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 beep. And if you listen to Bad Guy, the beep, beep, beep behind the do, that's just that sample. And Phineas, because he's a great producer, he used that, he adapted it, he moved it. And no other sound has that exact sample. No other track ever in the history of the world has ever had that exact sample. And that's what I love to see in this sort of music. Do something that no one else has ever done because it's your sound and you own it.
I think he did something that no one else has done. He submitted a club track and got an opinion from 3 aging white men. I think that's really brave.
I would love it. I want to see people memeing this.
Exactly who he wants to get an opinion on his music from. So I tip my hat to this.
I'm waiting for the TikTok videos, and it's just like someone just over the top of us three just talking about this, just going, look at these guys. They got no idea.
They have no. As long as they know we have no idea, then we're all good, right?
Oh dear, guys. So look, I think we're sort of through the difficult part of the show for us with the music that we're not qualified to talk about, and the last song is going to be something that we're all much more qualified to talk about. And I've got a specific reason for playing it, but before we do get onto that, of course, if you take my advice, as you would have done earlier if you're not already signed up for Distrokid, you would want to upload your tracks and get them onto a playlist of some kind. And a great way to do that, to get onto a popular playlist, is to use a feature on Distrokid, which I'm going to pull up now. Whoops, which I disappeared again, just like that. Go down to this, to the the wheel of playlist. It's good, isn't it, Pete? You choose one of your songs that you want to put in there. You click on here. It does like a Wheel of Fortune type of thing. You get 3 attempts, and it gives you a number on each result, and that's where you're going to be ranked in the playlist. And naturally, if you get a higher ranking in the playlist, it's more likely that people are going to hear you. And if people get to hear you, they get an opportunity to like your music and enjoy it. And that's what it's all about. I know Pete was talking earlier on his show that he has been delving into the world of promoting music. Promoting your own music, which I've got to say I'm absolutely lousy at. I never promote my own music anywhere. I mean, I play it to my family, basically, so I'm not qualified to talk about it. I'm hoping that Pete's going to educate himself, which I think he seems to be on a mission to do at the moment.
I am, yeah. And Distrokid has a lot of tools to do that, as well.
They do. They have a lot of tools. Like this show, actually, a lot of tools. That was a segue back from Distrokid into the show. 3 really old tools.
One a little blunter than the other 2.
So anyway, the reason I've chosen this last song, which is from Keith David. It's called a song called Willow. It's actually a lovely story. He's from Melbourne, here in Australia, but he grew up in the UK. And when he was young, one of the teachers at school he was sort of progressive, used to take the kids outside for their reading stories and things, and they'd sit under an old willow tree there. And he remembered this fondly, and that's why he wrote this song. And I think there's a bit of musing in the song about what happened to those people. So this is a completely different thing. This is much more of a storytelling thing, I guess. Now, Keith did... up front, this is not really his home recording. He originally recorded a demo in Cakewalk, and then he sort of took that demo to a studio in Melbourne where a couple of folks, I'll just remember the name of the studio, Ad Audio Studio, they were actually using one of Dan's favourites, Logic Pro. Logic Pro is what Dan uses, and it's what Pete is soon going to be looking at. What month are you looking at Logic Pro on your channel, Pete?
November. So next month is
November.
GarageBand Mac month, and then November is Logic month.
Pete's going to be as a virgin. He's going to be going into Logic Pro, and
I currently have no Logic. I will eventually have Logic.
yes, it's going to be interesting to see you do that, Pete. We're off topic, I know. But
Where the hell is this? Where is this?
Pete is a guy, he likes to do things quickly. He doesn't want to fiddle around with little settings and things. He wants to get in there and record his bloody song and not be complex about it. I really respect this. I think it's a very valid way of approaching music. No fuss, just like we used to do with the 4-track recorders. You set up something and you just press record and you got on with it. There's something to be said for that. Pete's like that. So I'm going to really have fun watching him struggle with Logic.
Could be worse. Could be Reaper again. Oh, never again.
Oh.
Never again.
Oh, you've just upset.
I've upset so
people.
many Reaper people.
Yeah, I haven't used Reaper. You can always
Reaper.
upset someone. I know people think I'm the Cakewalk guy. I've used Cakewalk for decades. I think it's wonderful, but I'm not a fanboy of any kind of DAW. I just whatever you like to use, please use
I
it.
think I just said it on my show, Mike. Unless they're paying the bills,
did.
you don't really need to be a fanboy of anything. Use what works for you, and if it stops working, use something else. End
Especially
of.
using third-party plugins, right?
It's a great point. And if anyone from Cakewalk is watching, start paying my bills, and I will be a fanboy. But until then, I just think it's great personally, and I think it's a fantastic platform for people to get started on. Anyway, we digress. Going back to Keith, who he went in now. So he had a little story about, and he was saying how intimidating this was for him to go into the studio. He's only really played guitar at home to himself. So like the first time they opened up the mic and said, right, let's lay down a guitar track, a guide track, he was like, oh my God, sort of thing. So, so it's been quite a learning experience for him. Anyway, the people who worked in the studio played bass and drums. They added that in there. So it's real bass, real drums. And that's part of the reason why I've got this on the show. It's sort of in contrast to the first 2 tracks. And let's see what we all feel, us and also folks in the chat, when we listen to this piece of music called Willow from Keith David.
Underneath the willow tree, I saw you and I saw me. In summer lightness or a haze, that was how we spent those days. Underneath the willow tree, stories old but plain to see. And so we sat with eyes so wide, neither thought to look inside. Willow tree, shelter me, willow tree, shelter me. Was there time for us to be? Somehow it was invisible. The time would be forgivable. take from what began. Willow tree, shelter me, willow tree, shelter me, willow tree, shelter me, shelter me.
Let's go over to my favourite YouTuber on this show tonight, Pete Johns.
What I lack in knowledge and skill, I make up for in punctuality.
You've been sitting on that one for the last 20 minutes, haven't you? Waiting for a place to put it.
I dug that. Yeah, I was listening in and I was trying to get into it, and then I was trying. You know that thing? Does anyone else do this where you listen to a song and you spend half the time trying to work out who it reminds you of, and then you sort of stop paying attention to the actual music? Well, I did that, and then I realized it was Icehouse. I realized that he had an Ivor Davies tone, and Dan may not be aware, but Mike, you'd be very aware of the band Icehouse, classic Australian great southern land. Yeah, but I really dug that. So the reason I got that is I got a bit of an 80s vibe. I liked the lead guitars. I liked the synth in there. I think someone mentioned that in there, that really blended in nicely there. You had that midpoint where you just had the guitar solo, which I'm assuming was a nice stereo pan wall of guitars, but who knows? But it was two guitars sounds playing a nice lead part in the middle there. And yeah, to me, the good thing about that song is that everyone's going to end this stream and they're going to walk away and they're going to be walking around washing their dishes or patting the dog and going, willow tree, shelter me. So hook. You can have the best song in the world. You can have a great song. Rush were great at this. They wrote really good songs, but where were their hooks? Oh, sorry, Dan. We're low blow there.
I'll show you a couple.
Oh, Tom Sawyer, I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I love that where you get a hook, because some people will say, hey, that's repetitive. You say it over and over again. As someone who just wrote a song where you say the same thing over and over again this month, I actually dig that, because I think that's what's going to be stuck in my head as I'm trying to get to sleep in an hour's time. I'm going to just be sitting there going, willow tree. Was there anything that I could have done differently? It's hard to get a feel for the mix and the EQ and the balance in the stream here. I did hear the vocals coming through quite loud, so there was a few times where I kind of lost a little bit of the guitar and a little bit of the synth, and that organ sound that sounded really cool, it seemed a little bit lost. So I think the balance of the instruments to the vocals was just a little bit off, and I would have liked to have heard that maybe a couple of dB lower, but again, it's really hard to determine. So yeah, I'll pass over to you. I may be being harsh on that one, because you need to hear the vocals, you need to hear the hook.
Go for it, Dan.
Well, it's funny. Just as I thought I was finally getting converted into electronic music, they bring me back in. So it's funny, exactly what Pete said at the beginning. The first chord and vocal, the first thing I thought was Pink Floyd. But then the song continued. I go, no, it's not Pink Floyd. And there was this artist, I don't know, there was a song I used to hear on the radio. It's a 70s song, like right down the line. The vocal, I wish I knew the name of the artist, but if officer so. But anyway, I heard that. And then that little monophonic synth line, was very, almost Oberheim, early 80s kind of, single note solo, and then keyboard solo. And then the guitars came in, and then they were actually harmonized. Whether he did worked out both of those parts or used a harmonizer, but I heard they were harmonized there. Then I was listening to the drums and the bass working nicely together. When we talk about real instruments, I just love the fact that someone takes the time to work that out. That's what I love about music. It's that experimentation, and then just taking the time to make things work together. And to me, that's the art. because you have to learn a skill, you have to apply the skill, and then you have to restrain yourself once you get really good at something, because now if you don't want to throw it all in there, it's a skill to be able to hold it back and listen to the other musicians in the group and fit all of those pieces together like a puzzle. And it all sat nicely, a little memorable hook, as you said. And to me, that's what songwriting and producing and mixing is all about. It's all about taking an idea and making things fit and make them sound good, and also let everyone who's part of the experience feel like they contributed to the whole, and that makes me happy when I hear that in music, because we don't hear that enough these days. And that's the feeling I got in listening to this. Like I said, in terms of the production, you're right, it's hard to tell through the stream, but the thought was there putting it all together, so I'm certain the effort was there in the production as well. So
good stuff. It's insightful. I just will declare that I did enjoy that particular piece of music very naturally, because I'm actually quite like Dan. I just get moved by real instruments. I will say that it was especially the drums that hit me. I hadn't read through all of the email when I first got this, and when it started up, and he'd said, because when he starts off his demo, he uses addictive drums too. And I hadn't realised that he later had gone into a studio. And I thought, when I heard it, I thought, oh my God, that's like the best addictive drums I've ever heard. This guy's a genius. And then, no, he used real drums in the studio. I was like, oh, okay. So I'd like to put it to Mimo Japan, who's a moderator and very good with virtual instruments. Mimo, a little challenge for you. Could you just reproduce those drums using addictive drums too? If you can do that, I'll be highly impressed. Not that I'm not already highly impressed by you, but yeah. So I just enjoyed the song as well, and what I really like about it, it's not something I often talk about in terms of songwriting composition, but I did allude to the sort of background of the song, and obviously it's almost a nostalgic song where the lyrics, as I said, he was talking about these memories of being a kid and sitting under this willow tree and being with the other kids and pondering. Now, if you didn't know, I didn't really, to be honest, pick up on a lot of the individual lyrics, but what struck me is how well the music suited that theme. Like there's a total connection between, if you think, if someone says, that's just sort of a nostalgic song about his memories of a kid, you go, yeah, that music kind of fit that idea really, really well. And it's something that I think is just so key in songwriting. So I'm just going to applaud Keith there very much. That connection between the meaning of the lyrics and, and it's both in the production and the arrangement, as well as the types of melodies used, the types of harmonies, the whole thing. So, and just the only other thing I wanted to mention, just because I love it, and I'm going to keep mentioning it every time it's on the show, is I loved harmonised lead guitar parts. And the reason I love them is because I'm not like Dan. I'm not like a really super fast guitar player, but you can make some really impressive guitar solos using really simple motifs and things and sort of melodic lines. Harmonise them and you've got gold every single time, as Thin Lizzy knew well. So I love that. It works really, really great. That's well done.
The opposite of every lead guitarist that's ever walked into a music shop and sits there and shreds to impress people. Like, no one's impressed anymore, people.
No one cares, and especially the people who work in the guitar store.
God, you can see them coming here. Yeah,
I think they make an effort not to be impressed, to be honest with you. I suspect there's a little conspiracy going on with guitar store employees.
They don't get paid enough to have to endure that day after day. I'll tell you.
They're walking around, and what's going on in their head? Pete's got it in his head voice. I can't do it, but he demonstrated it earlier. But they're walking around going, I'm not going to acknowledge that great guitar solo. I'm just pricing things up here. I'm not going to acknowledge. That's amazing. I'm not going to... That's what's really going on there. Pete, what's in your head voice? How does it go?
I can't remember now. What was I talking about? I had a sort of a stupid voice where we were talking about like when people are just like, I can't even do it. I've lost it. But with like, I'm only going to use a PC because I think a PC. Anybody who uses the Mac is such a fucking idiot. I just swore on you. Sorry. Sorry. It's in my head voice swears. in my voice where he can't help himself. But yeah, that's what my in my voice head sounds like. Usually when it's people that just use a one thing and then deliberately hate the other thing, like just because it's the other thing. Like I can't deal with it.
I just want to mention to everyone in the live chat, because I know some of them came over from Studio Live today. 3 years of creative source almost. I don't know how many live shows, but the first person to drop an F-bomb on a show is Pete Johns. I'm pointing the wrong way. Pete Johns, the first F-bomber in 3 years. I thought he was one of the nice guys. No. Now we know how he talks in his edge.
Apparently his head voice is in his behind, right?
Yeah. Luckily, we'd passed the 1 hour mark, which I noted, Mike, so no one's watching in the replay anyway. So they've all gone. So you're fine. No one will ever know our secret.
If you do happen to get this far, let me know in the comments down below on the restream, on the replay. Say yes. Just leave this comment. Yes, I heard the F-bomb from Pete. Just let me know. I'm just doing a survey, okay?
And I saw that Dan just got here.
Yeah. See, Mike's just going to hit the end button. He's like, why do I invite either of these people on here? This one doesn't show up, and this one is just throwing F-bombs in the middle of my show. I don't feel so bad
anymore. I'm the nice one again.
Such a fucking twat. Anyway, I think we're going to have to finish the show here, ladies and gentlemen. It's been nice to have you in the live chat. Really great to see you here. You're just wonderful, all these people who've joined us today. Please join us every Thursday night. As I said, please do remember to have a look at Pete's channel as well, where he does another show just before this on Thursday night and drags a few people over, which is very nice of him to do that. Do make sure that you check out the links to Dan's channel, where he makes great videos about music production. He's a great guitarist, focuses a lot on guitar stuff, does plugins, does gear reviews, has a great little sort of diary of him rebuilding his studio recently, which you should check out. And the nice thing about his videos is at the beginning of the video, when you press play, he's there. He's right there at the beginning when the video starts. It's not like you have to watch an empty studio for half an hour and then he appears. He gets there on time.
I'd probably get more subscribers if that was the case. Might have to try that one.
Oh, dearie me. So, yeah, great. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. Two of my favourite YouTubers and good friends as well. And lovely to see you. I'll be back next Thursday with another couple of guests who I don't like as much, to be honest with you, but they're here anyway, filling in the gap. And we will see you all next Thursday. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my new Facebook page and all that good stuff. And we'll see you next Thursday. I'll hit the